Welcome to Kenpo University. My name's Al Babinick and I'm your instructor. I was asked in the comment section about grafting. So grafting fits in with a few other things. So when we're messing with techniques, I have 3 different sections, and it's really just terminology that separates them out, okay? So it's all just you go off and do your own thing. But the first thing is a change-up. The second thing is grafting. The third thing is using the equation formula, all right? So what you want to keep in mind, these are all phase 3 things. Now we could do phase 2 and say what if about it, but these are all phase 3 adjustments that we do on the fly, all right? So which means you have to practice this stuff. So a change-up is when I start one technique and I finish with a different technique, okay? Grafting is when you start one technique, you go into another technique, and then you finish with the technique you started with. So you're just inserting really kind of into your technique some other extra parts. So grafting is starting with one, doing another, finishing with the original technique. And then the equation formula, now the equation formula is on all these. We're using the equation formula on all these. But when I'm talking about the equation formula, I do it a little bit separate. And this is just me, by the way, I do it a little separate. To me, when you use the equation formula, you're trying to continue the same technique throughout. You may have to change something, alter something, delete something, add, etc., right, the equation formula. You may have to adjust something to continue the technique because something went wrong. So if I totally change into a different technique, that's a change-up. If I go to another technique and come back to this technique, it's grafting. If I just adjust things a little bit just to get that technique to work for me, that's the equation formula. So I think of it 3 different ways, but really it's just terminology. And go hit the guy, right? So you're just trying to hit the guy as best you can, or the gal, right? You're trying to hit the person as best you can, staying in the Kenpo rules and principles. So I was asked about grafting. I could do multi-hour courses on change-ups, grafting, and the equation formula, but I was asked about grafting. So I'm just going to give you quick examples of what grafting is and how it's in the system already and how we can do it ourselves. All right, so let's take a look at an example of grafting in a technique where it's already part of the technique, and you'll see where it's at. So we're going to do Unfurling Crane out of brown. And in Unfurling Crane, there's actually a few techniques. There's Swinging Pendulum, there's Shielding Hammer, there's Raining Claw, which is the one we're going to use. Okay? So if you look at Unfurling Crane, it's just a bunch of techniques made up of other techniques, but we're going to do the Raining Claw part just to show you because it's an excellent example of grafting done in a technique for us already, just to give us an example of what we're doing. So as I hammer, his hand's going to go down. Here is, right in the technique, Raining Claw. That was the claw punch from Raining Claw right there. And then I finish as I do the actual technique and knock him backwards. So you start the technique here, throw a Raining Claw in there, and then you finish your technique as you go in, okay? So, one of the things, make sure this hand goes up. It doesn't have to be straight up like this, but it's got to be up. Because if it's here and I'm trying to chop to the collarbone, there's no travel. So it at least has to be above your head for the chop to the collarbone. So that is Unfurling Crane, which has Raining Claw in it already. And by the way, look for Shielding Hammer, first move. Look for Swinging Pendulum, second move. Raining Claw, third move. And then the actual Unfurling Crane, which is the last bit. Here's an example of grafting in a kata. So again, the system does it for us. We just have to know where to look. All right? So we're doing repeated devastation, and then we're going into scraping hoof, and then back into repeated devastation in long 3. So we're doing long 3, standing here. So from long 3, I'm standing here. It's strike, drop, punch. So this is right out of repeated devastation. And then I say, oh, if I've got his arms, I can do my heel kicks and my stomps. Then I go right into the rest of repeated devastation. Now, not sure how you do the technique, but when you do the technique, you go to the corners when you step, because that's the proper way to go. When you do the kata, we're going straight to the front because we're following our kata lines. We're following the plus sign for the kata lines. So the kata is a little bit different, but you saw I started with repeated devastation, went into scraping hoof, and then we finished with repeated devastation. Little side note, if you take a look at these, when you do scraping hoof, all legs. Repeated devastation, all hands. And then if you actually did twirling sacrifice, it's a takedown. So we kind of have one of each when we're put in that situation. Now this is a standalone graft where we're going to go from Shielding Mace into Flashing Wings and back to Shielding Mace. All right, so let's take a look at how it's going to work. He's throwing a right overhead punch or right punch at me. I'm going my block, my uppercut, my hammer, but instead of going to the face, I slip through with my elbow, chop, chop, check. Got all this going on. I recheck, palm up to the face. Hey, there's the leg, and I could take him out right from there. So that's Shielding Mace into Flashing Wings, back into Shielding Mace. All right, here's another example where when you see techniques and you look at obstructing the storm and you look at crossing talon, you go, those look kind of familiar for some reason. Well, if we wanted to graft them, we could do obstructing the storm, do crossing talon in the middle, and then really the end of crossing talon is the knee to the face anyhow. So in this one you could say, is it a change up or is it grafting? Because crossing talon has that knee to the head anyhow. So you can make the call on what you want to call it, but this is where it's just terminology, okay? It doesn't make a difference. Hit the guy. That's all we're trying to do, is hit the guy really, really well. So if you want to call this a change-up, call it a change-up. If you say it's grafting, it's grafting. You guys can figure it out for yourselves. So obstructing the storm's overhead club. We're doing the X block. I step off to the side, and I'm taking him down. Now, normally, this is where my knee would be, and I just pull him into the knee. But if I decided to go in and do crossing talon and then get my knee at the end there as I do the technique, is it a change-up or is it grafting? It's up to you to decide. But kind of who cares? You hit the guy. You did some extra hits in there. That's what counts. Thank you for watching this video production from Kenpo University.